Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with a very special Ranked and Reviewed. And this is video number 50 into this Ranked and Reviewed playlist. This isn't the 50th band I've done, as there's been a few updates and even one-off video where I ranked Limp Bizkit's discography. But the one to talk about this band for a while, and I think it timed out perfectly. And that band is Filter. Maybe a band you've never heard me talk about. Pretty obscure, semi-mainstream band that peaked in the 90s, but has been putting out solid material ever since. I was hoping that I could release this in time for an 8th studio album, but there has been no update and no hint that that's coming anytime soon. So I want to just talk about their 7 studio albums from 1995 up until their last album in 2016. And the reason why I wanted this to be my kind of like my special entry, halfway to maybe 100 videos, we'll see, is this might be my new favorite band. At least they've worked their way up into like my top 10 favorite bands, which bottom 2 spots are a little malleable. But I know what my top 10 solid bands are, my ride or die, but Filter might have just worked their way into there. By the way, if you want to just go straight to the rankings on these videos, maybe I'll put a timestamp down there, but all you have to do is run along the scrubbing tool of the YouTube video, and you could just see the slideshow, the order that I put them in. And then, of course, if you want to stop and listen to my reasons, you just do that. But you can basically scroll through the video and see what my rankings are. I like to give a little bit of context and history of what got me into these bands, because it really does fill in the gaps, and it gives perspective and shows, hey, even a young old soul like me at age 30 who's stuck in his childhood but also trying to move on with his life and make the best of the present can still get into new music, can still realize, oh, what did I miss out on? Or, oh my God, this might actually deeply influence my new work. So that's why I give these videos. And plus, as much as I personally have a short attention span and like shorter videos, I also appreciate longer videos where people go into more depth. So I'm not just ranking these albums, I'm also usually reviewing them. So for me to review and rank an entire discography of 6 to 12 albums from certain bands in under half an hour, I think is pretty impressive. I try to keep these things succinct. But anyway, back to Filter. I've been listening to this band for well over a year now, but not in depth. It was mostly just an odd track here or there off of not one of their more popular albums. But I don't know what it was, but it was the holiday season last year. I felt the need to go back and re-listen to their third album, the Amalgamate, and I was just reminded at how great that album was, and I was like, okay, it's time to break into some other materials. Listen to their very popular first 2 albums. I actually went out to the used record store and bought them. I actually own Short Bus and Title of Record. I think they're the original versions too, not the remastered re-releases. So I always like that. I always like owning a piece of history. But then their last 4 albums I've been listening to also have a lot of merit and a lot of strength. So I really enjoy this band. I really enjoy the diverse sounds, and it's actually given me a new perspective. Like, first time I heard Architects, or first time I revisited Limp Bizkit, or Korn, or Linkin Park, or Sum 41, and all my other favorite bands that all play significant roles in my music writing. Much like those bands, I enjoy all of Filter's albums and love the alternative, sometimes new metal, of course the industrial, hard rock, electronic sounds they use. They just sound so fucking good. Richard Patrick is a freaking genius. The guy's an insanely good vocalist. He's a great guitar player. They don't write the most complex riffs, but damn it if there's not power and groove behind them. I fucking love his guitar playing, and I love that from such a young age he was able to write such powerful music, and to this day still does. I like his politics. I like what he stands for, as far as I know, and I really hope that we get new music soon. But that being said, the spread between basically my new favorite band is their weakest album still got a B minus, and their best album got like an A. So really no ties here. I had a pretty easy time ranking these albums, and it came out a little different than I hoped it would. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'll give you my ranking, and then of course I'll cap it off with my top 10 favorite Filter songs. But just to give you context, I've already made a playlist of this band with like 31, 32 songs, best of all their albums, and then of course like offshoots like Can't You Trip Like I Do or Jurassic All. Like just their movie soundtrack material is also solid. I don't think Patrick Murphy or Richard Patrick, I don't know why I can't get his name down, is incapable of writing shallow or bad music. So let's get into it. Bottom spot goes to their last release, Crazy Eyes. So it's a pretty solid album from front to back. It's very consistent, really no weak dips or anything like that, but just nothing spectacular. This is definitely their most electronic industrial sounding album. They wanted to get back to their roots, because Richard Patrick was a touring guitarist and in a few music videos for Nine Inch Nails. So I can see how Trent Reznor, or maybe just from his own accord, would have that influence in his music. Crazy Eyes definitely does have some solid tracks, like City of Blinding Riots. It gives me that turn of the century techno electronic, but still kind of raw, hard-hitting sound with like just a great electronic groove. And then Under the Tongue, to kind of go in a separate direction, it sounds like a short bus instrumental, so I like that live, raw energy. Other research I did for Filter was I watched the Feminology documentary from the mid-90s that was documenting the whole short bus thing. Great 1 hour film. I think it's an hour. And it basically just said Filter was born to be a live band. And they still show it even in their most electronic albums. So other than that, though, not a whole lot of songs that I particularly love. Definitely got a little obscure here and there for my taste. It comes down to preference. But if you like electronic, you like that old school 80s, 90s industrial sound, then maybe this could be one of your favorite albums. But for me, this is their bottom entry. Still worth listening to, but only a handful of tracks that I particularly liked. Nothing in My Hands also. Pretty upbeat chorus. Great mix of guitars and electronics. Mother E's an interesting single. Not one of my favorites from them, but it's still pretty solid on its own merit. But yeah, just a lot of transition sounding setup tracks like Welcome to the Suck, Your Bullets. But yeah, that's my take on Crazy Eyes. It's my least favorite album from them, but it's still worth listening to if you're a Filter fan. And if you prefer the electronic stuff, this might be one of your favorites. Next up, at the number 6 spot, is their 2013 release, The Sun Comes Out Tonight. Now, if Filter were to have a butt rock album, it would be this one. But even their most commercially sellout radio rock early 2010s era, where like a lot of heavier bands that I was listening to were trying to go maybe a bit more mainstream, slightly before the nu metal revival of the mid 2010s. The Sun Comes Out Tonight definitely encompasses that. And I'm not going to say that Filter is a trend hopping band, but they definitely stay true to their identity whilst somehow also doing maybe what's potent at the time in the music industry. Maybe something akin to like Linkin Park. But I think Linkin Park might be a little bit more outright or, in your face about trend jumping whilst staying true to their identity. Sun Comes Out Tonight. It's definitely got more drop C material, so some of the riffs sound a little bit recycled. But Richard Patrick is a solid vocalist, so even the most generic sounding radio hard rock songs like Watch the Sun Come Out Tonight, What Do You Say, This Finger's For You, they still sound good, better than like your average or below average butt rock or hard rock bands. But there are some solid songs in here. You got Surprise, you got It's Just You. Best songs on the album. Also on the lighter side, Filter does write good, hard-hitting, melodic, soft material too. Great electronics sprinkled throughout, great melodies sprinkled throughout, what's mainly a hard rock guitar-driven album, but just like Crazy Eyes from start to finish, it's definitely one of their more boring albums, but it doesn't mean that there's not more merit and, of course, more preference towards the guitar-driven rock sound that you hear in this versus an album like Crazy Eyes. So, Surprise and It's Just You are great, melodic soft tracks, but there's a couple of other solid, like, hard rock songs like Watch the Sun Come Out Tonight, It's Gotta Be Right Now, and even the opening track, We Hate, you get what you want, but this is definitely their most generic hard rock sounding radio rock album. But when a good band puts something out, and even if it's got that, what would otherwise be considered stank on it if another band did it, because it's got the Filter name and the Filter brand and the Filter talent behind it, it definitely still sounds good and worth listening to. But those two bottom albums are the ones that I would certainly listen to the least. Let's get into some material that I would be much more likely to listen to repetitively. At the number 6 spot, we have Anthems for the Damned, their 2008 release, album number 4. I've had this issue in the past where I would see a band that had more of an edge or more of a raw sound to them do something like what looks like selling out or doing radio rock, maybe paying like unnecessary homage to the troops just to get that America fuck yeah look. I judged that just from the album cover. I did the same thing with All That Remains, A War You Cannot Win album, but judged a book by its cover incorrectly, and even though I'm a much more mature and less overly critical listener of music now, I still fell into that trap with Anthem for the Damned. This album is actually very underrated, and I think it's really good. If you just separate that misjudgment of album cover, this album is actually very meaningful. There's a lot of powerful lyrics and storytelling and songwriting with regards to like the Iraq War. I believe there's a song on there that acknowledges a former band member becoming like an army sergeant or something. Like, there's a lot of power to this album, and to me, this is a much more refined version of The Sun Comes Out Tonight, even though it came out before. A lot of more hard rock elements here on this album, but they hit harder. Soldiers of Misfortune has a powerful vocal performance. Maybe it's because of the key that it's played in, or maybe that's got better sonicality and production. But, What's Next sounds like it's got, more of a hard rock mainstream appeal whilst maintaining a raw, powerful guitar-driven hook and vocal projection that you would hear maybe on like the Amalgamate. What's Next has that. The Wake has great guitar work, and it's the best song on the album. Solid guitar work accompanied by powerful soaring vocals. Richard Patrick makes it sound effortless. Cold, Hatred, Contagious continues that momentum. Middle of the album, though, Lie After Lie, Kill the Day, the tag, I Keep Flowers Around. Actually, it picks up with I Keep Flowers Around. Middle of the album, still great songs, just doesn't maintain that momentum that the front half of the album had. And then it starts to pick up a little bit with In Dreams, which has a drop A nu metal sound to it that I deeply enjoy. Deeply enjoy the chorus. I love when Filter drops down the drop A. All their drop A songs I enjoy. I believe I've enjoyed all of them thus far. And then Only You, another solid track. So Anthems for the Damned, definitely a slightly heavier, more refined version of The Sun Comes Out Tonight. With more variety and tunings and sounds and vocal performance. Probably their most underrated album. I see a few other rankings I've seen put this one towards the bottom. It's obviously the same here, but it's not at the very bottom. I think Anthems for the Damned is actually significantly better than the bottom two albums. Next up, at the very middle spot at number 4, I'm actually disappointed this one landed here. It's their third album, The Amalgamate. So, as I hinted at the top of this video, this is the album that really got me into them. And the obscure song I was talking about was So I Quit. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what enticed me to listen to this band before. Maybe it was the Spawn soundtrack and Crystal Method / Filter. Can't You Trip Like I Do? Maybe you want to go listen to Filter. I wanted to listen to an album that was maybe during the turn of the century, so I went to the year 2002 because Title of Record looked a little too mainstream. Again, I still incorrectly judge shit. I'm going to get into that with these higher up entries. But for the Amalgamate, I probably did listen to it from front to back a while back and was like, oh wow, there's actually some great shit on here. But the song that really stuck with me was So I Quit. Even though it's got that weird delay vocal effect on it, it's still great. It's got a very powerful, uplifting, very unique chorus. The chorus to So I Quit hits me super hard. It's still love the song. It's not one of my favorites, oddly enough, because now that I've heard their whole discography, but So I Quit's probably like a top 15 Filter track. Still one of the stronger songs on the album. The Amalgamate as a whole, though, it's probably their heaviest album. I certainly appreciate that Richard Patrick was going through like a series of life changes, checking into rehab. You know, this album got delayed a few times, and it was a significant amount of pressure to follow up on the powerhouse success of Title of Record. But the Amalgamate definitely delivers. It might be sitting at the number 4 spot, but it's still quite a bit better than the bottom 3. It's the best sounding album. It's got that powerful wall of guitar sounds. It's got the best drumming sounds I've heard. The bass sounds great. The variety of tunings comes through great. You got You Walk Away in drop C. You got a lot of songs in drop D, but you got Columbine in drop A. This is probably their most nu metal sounding album, with songs like American Cliche. Got a little bit of a rap, nu metal swing to it that I love. So American Cliche is definitely one of the best tracks. And then, of course, you know, you take the commercial success of a song like Take a Picture, but what do you do with that? How do you give it a little bit more edge and a little bit more power and somehow take the emotional appeal of it and double down on it? You release Where Do We Go From Here, which is definitely one of the most powerful songs in the album, definitely pulls on the heartstrings. It juxtapositions beautiful, meaning clean guitar strums and brooding vocals. And by brooding, I don't mean like, wee. I just mean like you feel the power. And then it gets into a really powerful, heavy chorus. So even though Richard Patrick was smoking 3 to 4 packs of cigarettes a day, you couldn't tell in his vocal performance. He sounds insanely good on Where Do We Go From Here. The Only Way Is the Wrong Way. Kind of got that Title of Record feel. Same thing with Goddamn Me. It's got that more mellow but still upbeat Title of Record feel. I think one of those songs was actually featured in a Hummer commercial. So even though it's made for a car commercial, it still sounds great. The guitar work in My Long Walk to Jail, another nu metal sounding song. The guitar work is awesome. And again, my favorite tracks are Where Do We Go From Here and then So I Quit, and American Cliche. Columbine, holy fuck, that's probably their heaviest song. And Drop A, all that screaming. Like I said, this is their heaviest album. I think this is the heaviest album vocally as well. The only reason why it didn't get the top spot or place higher is because of the last 2 tracks. I understand if a band has a weird closing track that's just kind of like, just not even like a typical song structure, but just a weird, outro where they're just making noise and doing atmosphere. They did that like 2 tracks in a row, though, with World Today and the 4th, my least favorite songs from Filter. So if I were to just listen to the first 10 tracks, yeah, this album would be fucking awesome, but I'd still be yearning for something more. But unfortunately, those last 2 tracks don't cap off the album as much as I would have preferred it to. But otherwise, fully functional, fully fleshed out, insanely good album. Just because you're at the number 4 spot doesn't mean it's probably the album I enjoy listening to the most. Definitely love it. Definitely love the nu metal elements of American Cliche. And then, of course, that turn of the century, yet still somehow raw mainstream appeal to Where Do We Go From Here. I obviously talked about this album for 5 fucking minutes, so I enjoy it. Number 3 spot goes to their first album, Short Bus. And that might be like, what? Hey man, Nice Shots, like their biggest song, or one of their biggest songs. Short Bus is their first. Look, music is subjective and we've got our rankings. That's why I'm talking about it. Short Bus is such a great album. It is raw. It's real. It sounds great. It sounds like a jam band album on steroids. All these songs were designed to be played live. It really does capture the essence of the mid-90s, of the post-grunge, slightly alternative, little bit of industrial stuff going on with some nods to maybe some more hard rock and metal appeal. I don't know how Filter does it. They play in like the 0-3-6 power chord structure and drop D so frequently. They like love that scale, or they love that sequence, but every riff sounds original. Every riff sounds like there's a lot of feel and power behind it. So, Hey Man, Nice Shot's definitely one of their best tracks for good reason. It's one of those albums that opens up with, it's like Korn and Blind. The band's first album, first song off the first album is one of their biggest songs for years and years. Other favorite tracks are Take Another, and of course Stuck in Here, great acoustic track. Definitely reminds me of the mid-90s, even though I was just a wee lad. It does take me back. What really helped me get a lot of appreciation for this album is not just owning it and listening to it several times back and forth and realizing how fucking not underrated, but just maybe how underappreciated a band like Filter is. Like I said, it's the Feminology documentary that came out in the mid-90s. Seeing the music videos for these songs, seeing live performances of these songs, and seeing the creative structure that went into this, it was very eye-opening, and it really made me miss being in a band. It really made me miss jamming with guys and having fun. But there's a great mix between just heavy, in-your-face songs with insanely good bridges and like reprises, but also great melodies and great like mid-90s style like grunge emotional heart tug with like powerful guitar melodies and songs like Consider This or So Cool. Another song I really enjoy is Gerbil. I love the chorus. That chorus gets me. I love the saturated vocals. Take Another, I love that raw energy in the chorus. I don't have a whole lot to say about the other tracks. Dose, Under, and Spent, they've all got great things going about them. A little repetitive. Dose sounds a little bit too much like Gerbil, but I think Gerbil's better. But the bass guitar sounds insanely good. And again, this just sounds like an amazing album that I would have loved to have seen them play live back in the day. And it holds up after all this time. So that is the number 3 spot, Short Bus. And obviously this video is running long, but I'm talking to you about one of my new favorite bands. I have a lot to say about all these albums. So if you stuck around this long, let's get to the top 2 and really make this fun. All right, so there's only 2 albums left. And if you're a huge Filter fan, you might be wondering, okay, how did one of these albums make it this high up? That is the number 2 spot, The Trouble with Angels. Or Trouble with Angels, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed listening to this album in December a couple months ago. I was replaying Final Fantasy VII on the PS4. I was playing it at 3x speed. This album came out in 2010, but I was playing a game from the 90s so as to relive part of my childhood. And, of course, listening to other Filter records. But Trouble with Angels, man, it has the loud, powerful, insanely good production and heaviness of the Amalgamate, but it's got the consistency, the hooks, and the potency of, say, another record that I haven't talked about yet. I think The Trouble with Angels is either highly underrated or underappreciated. There is variety in this album where, there's 1 or 2 more melodic songs like No Love, even though it does once again go back and forth between hard-hitting guitar riffs and like softer vocals, softer guitars. I've heard people say that like that was a disappointing song. I think it's very well written. And then of course the closing track, Fades Like a Photograph, very gentle but beautiful song. But I want to talk about the heavy, of course. I want to talk about the heavy powerhouse tracks like Absentee Father. I want to talk about Drug Boy. I want to talk about that nasty ass riff. Dun 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 dun. The first time I heard that chorus, I'm trying. The first time I heard that, ooh, these songs are so well written. I know it's not like original band members, but whoever wrote the guitars and some of the leads for that album, they really came through. This is such an insanely good album. They got these big and memorable choruses that remind me of Korn's Untouchables album. Just big, loud, heavy choruses that are memorable. Every song, even like my least favorite tracks, are memorable. So that's the thing. To me, that's what can really make a great album, is even if it's not the top album, the consistency in it being memorable. Trouble with Angels definitely did that. It opens with one of my least favorite tracks, The Inevitable Relapse, but it's still a powerful single. It's a powerful message. I can kind of relate to it on some level, not as a drug addict, but just like, falling into bad habits and, stuff like that. But it does have a great chorus and a great message, meaning. So I'm able to, give points and give grace and say, hey, while I don't love the hook, just, musically, still a great song. But yeah, Drug Boy, Absentee Father, which has that super powerful D major scale power chord, hits me super hard. It made me feel like I was back in like middle school listening to Sum 41 Does This Look Infected. Catch a Falling Knife, another powerful chorus, another powerful opening riff with great melodies in the background. The song that really got me into this album was Clouds, another big, heavy, powerful chorus. I think, even though I said the Amalgamate has Richard Patrick's heaviest vocal performance, I think Trouble with Angels has his overall best performance with like the clean vocals, with songs like Absentee Father. He sounds like fucking Chris Cornell when he's projecting. He sounds like he's really tapping into some really powerful energy in the chorus of Clouds. I wish I could sing like that. Even though I don't sound like Richard Patrick or have anywhere near the level of talent, he reawakened my desire to be a vocalist and my desire to get good at it again. So even though I'm miles away, I'm light years away from where I want to be, the vocal performance in Trouble with Angels and then, of course, parts of Amalgamate really made me want to write powerful, big choruses again that grip you in the middle of otherwise fun, blood-pumping verses and great guitar riffs. So Trouble with Angels really does tie it all together. It's a very refined Filter album, and it does feature things that the best Filter albums have, which is a nice back and forth. You don't have to have soft melodic songs to have a complete Filter album, but that's part of what they do in pretty much all their albums, and they do it very well, and they do it especially well in this album. No Entry is solid. Down With Me has got another big, powerful chorus that I enjoy, and the same thing with like Trouble with Angels. I like that they played in like, it sounded like drop B or something on some of these songs. Anyway, that's the number 2 spot. Really great album, Trouble with Angels. But what's the top spot? It's their fucking sophomore success. It's Title of Record from 1999. And, like many other bands that I've done, the number 1 spot landed on what's probably the most like agreed upon consensus. It's their second release. Maybe it's the bias of 1999. Maybe it's the bias of other factors. But the way Trouble with Angels got me excited, or the Amalgamate got me excited, Title of Record somehow took it a step further. Yes, it does feature their most popular commercially successful song, Take a Picture, which I don't know if one band inspires the other or which one came first, but Take a Picture sounds like something that would have either inspired Deftones' White Pony album, or I don't know. But what I'm really starting to see as I listen to more and more bands is where certain bands draw influence from, how certain bands shaped maybe the discography or the identity or just the inspiration of other bands. So I'm starting to see that more as a musician, and I fucking love it. I can see how an album like Title of Record probably helped shape a generation of musicians and somehow remained potent and powerful during the turn of the century. Of course, this is their most commercially successful album to date. It features their biggest songs, but the album as a whole, from front to back, has the powerful consistency of an album like Trouble with Angels, and it's got great high points like that album or Amalgamate. But again, it takes to a whole other level, and the fact that it was in 1999, it being their second album, they were able to double down on the popularity they got from Short Bus and do even better. It's just it's a potent record. You got that nasty ass nu metal Korn sounding intro and Welcome to the Fold. While the chorus does kind of weird me out a little bit. Like, you drink yourself a nice cold beer. It's a little corny, but it's no pun intended, but it's actually a really deep, powerful song with an insanely good bridge. You hear some of that post-grunge, hard rock, slightly new metal song energy and choruses like Captain Bligh. I love just the sense of urgency, but also the calmness in songs like It's Gonna Kill Me. I love that chorus. And I have to talk about the reason why this album is truly the best. One of my new favorite songs of all time. Another endorphin rush song that never fails to uplift me. And this song likely saved me during the holiday season. Not that I was suicidal or anything, but there was just a lot of stressful stuff with the pandemic going on and traveling and everything like that. And the song, The Best Things, really carried me through. This is my absolute favorite song from Filter, The Best Things, which it is a single. There's a music video for it that I really love too. It sounds like it's a song that would be like the chorus maybe sounds like, or not the chorus, the verses sound like it would be like in a car commercial. But I don't know, man. I think the song's written about the American healthcare system. But there's just something about the key that it's played in, the way Patrick Murphy sounds on the vocals, and the way the chorus is sung, and the way that the bridge, and of course the fucking outro, that final chorus, the way he projects on the repeat, you know the best things in life, like he actually goes high in life, like it sounds insane. Best Things is a perfect 10 out of 10 song. Those are hard to come by, but Title of Record has a few really high rated songs, and The Best Things really elevated towards the top. Take a Picture is also a beautiful song. It's not underrated. It's their most popular song. I really enjoy it. I think it's a perfect song to come after The Best Things. Skinny, really ahead of its time in my opinion. Great guitar work there. My other favorite song is I Will Lead You. Again, pre-chorus. Sounds like fucking like Chris Cornell, or maybe even like a little Lane Staley. Like, he just sounds insane. Like, Richard Patrick is such a fucking good vocalist with great, powerful guitar riffs going by. And they're not just power chords. They're like augmented chords. They're like not just playing like, like an 8-8-8. They're going 8-8-10-10 to get like that layered effect. They're just this big wall of sound with these powerful guitars. They sound amazing. I think a Smashing Pumpkins member made a debut or a feature in the song Cancer. So there's definitely some haunting sounds in songs like Cancer, maybe Miss Blue. And yeah, this album does close on a solid note with I'm Not the Only One in Miss Blue. So there's really no songs on this album I don't like. They're all great. They're all well above average. And of course, it features some of their best songs, like The Best Things, I Will Lead You, It's Gonna Kill Me. Title of Record is just a fucking phenomenal album. It got an A in my book. I own it. I've listened to it a bunch of times thus far, and it's easily their best album. It doesn't dominate Trouble with Angels or, Short Bus, but it's easily their best record. And if they ever put out anything near that caliber again, I will consider it a tremendous gift. But honestly, I would consider anything from Filter a gift, even their most recent singles, which sound pretty good. If he's able to churn out more music and sound great, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So let's recap. Least favorite to most favorite, we got Crazy Eyes, The Sun Comes Out Tonight, Anthems for the Damned, The Amalgamate, Short Bus, Trouble with Angels, and Title of Record. Trouble with Angels being the exception. Their best years were their early albums. But the odd favorite is actually Trouble with Angels. I love that album. My top 10 Filter tracks are Catch a Falling Knife, Take a Picture, American Cliche, Hey Man, Nice Shot, The Wake, Clouds, Where Do We Go From Here, I Will Lead You, Absentee Father, and The Best Things. So I think that's a song off of every album except for Crazy Eyes and The Sun Comes Out Tonight, but something off their other 5 records. So I talked about this band for a long time. I actually thoroughly enjoy them. And if you've been sleeping on Filter for a long time or don't know, I hope this video helps you uncover some great new music. I strongly recommend listening to any of their first handfuls of albums. I really do think that The Trouble with Angels is a grossly underrated and underappreciated album. Maybe it was just by me, but now I have a new album that I thoroughly love, as well as Title of Record, Amalgamate, Short Bus, Anthem for the Damned is also solid. So thanks for listening, guys. What do you agree with or disagree with? Do you have any solid memories? How would you rank these differently? What songs mean a lot to you? And hey, I just looked at my list. I got at least another 30 bands on the docket. We'll see how many I can get through this year. But are there any particular bands that maybe I haven't listed that maybe you'd want to see? I'd have to really be into the band, or you'd have to make a good case if I haven't already listed them. But let me know what else you might want to see, and be sure to check out my other ranked and reviewed videos also. Again, this is video number 50. I've been doing this for a few years now. I've been enjoying it. So thanks to everybody that's been engaged and subscribed and commented. I really appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next one.